On today's program, I'm joined by Ben Nicholson-Smith of the website MLB Trade Rumors.com, and he's here to tell us all about the rumors and the speculation leading up to the winter baseball meetings being held next week. On this week's Phil Nason Show, proudly presented by Swag Screen and Textile. That's Swag Screen and Textile for all your screen and textile needs.
Welcome to the Phil Nason Show!
The waiting is over! The New York Rangers are the Stanley Cup champions! And this one will last a lifetime!
There's a breaking ball in for a strike, and he stood there like the house by the side of the road and watched it go by. Struck him out.
Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Give it up! And right! That's what they want! Little Dipsy Doo! Jamboree!
Right-hander against the right-hander. The outfield is straight up and deep on Fielder. He is the DH today. Swing. There's a drive to left. That one is long gone.
Tonight I'm joined by Mr. Ben Nicholson-Smith of the outstanding website MLBTradeRumors.com. Ben, how are you this evening, and welcome to the Phil Nason Show.
I'm doing well, and thanks a lot for having me on, Phil.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Ben.
I'm a writer for MLBTradeRumors.com, which means that we keep track of all sorts of trades and free agents and waiver claims, anything that you want to know about that has to do with MLB transactions. We keep track of it there, and I'm definitely happy to be a part of it.
And you know what? And you've been a great benefit to me. I go to your site like 3 or 4 times a day. It's incredible. How did you get it started? What made you want to do what it is you do?
Well, I can't take any credit for starting it. It was my boss, Tim Durkis, who started the site. He owns it now, and he started it about 6 years ago this time. It grew pretty quickly from that point on, and in 6 years, it's since become a pretty reliable source, we like to think, for anything to do with MLB transactions. And Tim and I and a whole team of other writers and contributors work on the site now, and it's definitely a fun team to work with and a good gig because there's a whole lot going on this time of year.
Yeah, there's plenty. Speaking of what's going on during this time of the year, we've got a couple of free agents that people are very interested in. And last night I did a program with a gentleman. We talked a little bit about Albert Pujols. Where do you see Albert Pujols winding up? There's rumors he's going to Miami, a 9-year deal. There's rumors that the Cubs are talking to him. Obviously, the Cardinals are in the mix. What are you hearing over there at MLBTradeRumors.com?
Well, the Cardinals are overwhelmingly the favorite to re-sign him, but Pujols has drawn interest from other places, not surprisingly. This guy's a 3-time MVP. He, even in a down year, had a phenomenal offensive season. He's regarded as a good defender, and he's still only 31 years old. So he's going to draw lots of interest. He's going to shoot for the record contract in MLB history, but only so many teams can afford $275 million. The Cubs are in, the Cardinals are in, the Marlins, like you said. I won't be surprised in the least if the Rangers get involved, but so far they've been pretty quiet on that front. So, Pujols is going to have a lot of interest. He's going to have to make some tough decisions, and I think that ultimately he will end up back in St. Louis.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. Now, I'm a big Mets fan. I bleed blue and orange. What are you hearing about Jose Reyes? The Mets have zero chance to re-sign him, do they?
I think the chances are slightly north of zero, but not by much. I mean, this guy is not going to re-sign in New York. I don't think the Mets are going to be outbidding many teams for many top free agents this offseason. They might end up scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to free agents, and you can do a lot of great things in that regard, but Sandy Alderson doesn't want to give up draft picks, and at this point, with the Mets' uncertain financial situation, I'm just not sure that they're going to act like the big market team that they really are at this point, so expect the Marlins, potentially the Brewers. I mean, the Giants certainly have a need at shortstop. I'm not sure if they're going to make a big splash this offseason. The Cardinals have a need in the middle infield. The Tigers could really use Jose Reyes. You've got other teams like the Nationals and the Braves as dark horses, although I would be stunned if the Braves made a move for Reyes. So, I think that there's going to be tons of interest in him as well, despite the fact that he really hasn't been able to stay consistently healthy. Even though he's made it onto the field for good chunks of playing time, even this year, he did end up spending a fair amount of time on the DL.
Yeah, that's right. He spent half the season almost on the DL. Now we have Prince Fielder, the Milwaukee Brewers first baseman. Now I've made this case. I don't know how familiar you are with my show, but I've been stating over and over that I think he would be crazy to leave Milwaukee because, quite frankly, it's the most peaceful situation for him. Is he going to stay in Milwaukee or is he going to take off?
Well, I expect him to take off, and I think that, peace aside, the guy's going to get more money if he leaves. I don't think the Brewers are going to outbid the other teams that could use all kinds of offense. And Fielder's a guy who might approach $200 million when it comes to his contract this offseason. So I think whether it's the Mariners, the Nationals, whether it's the Rangers, the Cubs, he's going to have tons of offers, and I don't think the Brewers are going to be the ones that go out there and outbid all these other teams.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, but I think for me, I would want to stay in the small market, take a little less money, and have peace and quiet.
Fair enough.
But that's me. That's why I moved to Greece. But,
yeah.
Okay, now.
Fair enough.
Okay, what about C.J. Wilson? People are talking a lot about him these days too, and with the signing last week of a relief pitcher to bring Neftali Feliz into the starting lineup, what are the chances of C.J. Wilson remaining a Texas Ranger?
I think that the chances are pretty slim. The Rangers have a pretty stacked rotation now, 1 through 5, and I mean, this isn't going to rival the Phillies rotation of last year or the Braves rotations of the late 90s when it comes to effectiveness, but 1 through 5, they have a pretty decent group of starters. So when you have that in your organization already, you're probably not going to go out, bend over backwards, hand over 9-figure contracts to a guy who has been a starter for 2 years and realistically hasn't convinced people that he's anything more than a number 2 or 3 starter. Now, of course, there's a huge market for number 2 and 3 starters, and guys like that are still very valuable to have, but are they worth $100 million? I don't think the Rangers are going to answer that question yes.
All right, that's a terrific answer. Terrific answer. Now, as we approach the baseball meetings, which teams do you think are going to make the most moves, and which teams do you think probably won't do anything?
I think that we're going to see a lot of action from the Marlins. That's been pretty apparent from the outset of the offseason that they want to be really aggressive, and I doubt that they're going to stop at this point. You have teams like the Cardinals. They can make a big splash, clearly, with Pujols, the biggest free agent out there. I think the Rangers are a team to watch because they are coming off of consecutive American League championships. They want to push themselves over the edge, and they do have money in the form of a big TV deal coming in around 2014. So that's another team. And, of course, the Red Sox, now that they've finally sorted out their managerial situation, I think they're a team that has a fair number of holes to fill. And even though Ben Cherington isn't going to go out there and be irresponsible in free agency in his first season as a GM, I do think that he's a guy who's going to patch things up. And he realizes that the Red Sox are a big market team, and they can go out and get the free agents they need to make this team a little bit stronger going into 2012.
All right, perfect. Okay, last question. What do you see for next year's Major League Baseball season? Go out on a limb for us and make a prediction. Who do you think is going to have the most success next year in the majors and win the World Series?
I mean, I couldn't predict the World Series winner once, even when it was down to 2 teams. So right now, before off-season moves have been completed and before spring training and before the playoffs have been decided, it's impossible. But I will say that, I think that you look around the league right now and you have the Phillies, you have the Yankees, you have the Rangers. Those are teams that strike me as clubs that would be serious playoff threats instantly, regardless of what they do for the rest of the offseason. And I understand that the Phillies have to sort out their shortstop situation, but overwhelmingly, these 3 teams are set for 2012. The Yankees are going to look for some pitching. The Rangers could use left-handed relief, and they might consider first base alternatives. The Phillies are going to try to figure out shortstop, but that's pretty small adjustments that these teams have to make when you consider them relative to other teams around the league. So I think that those 3 teams, maybe the Braves, maybe the Tampa Bay Rays, are also in that conversation. But those teams are serious contenders, and as for who's actually going to win it, I mean, that's anybody's guess. And I would still say that 10 months from now, when it's time for the playoff race, and we already know which teams are on track for the playoffs.
All right. Last year I got lucky. I was interviewing a Cardinal blogger. It was August the 24th, and they were about 11 games out. And I said, dude, I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting to believe, because I've always liked Tony La Russa. So I said, they're going to go all the way. You'll see. I looked like a genius. I was just talking on the side of my neck, man, because I just got jacked up. I felt so bad for this guy because a week before they were still in the playoff hunt, and he was disappointed, obviously, in his team. And I was trying to jack him up, and it just worked out. Ben, this has been a great time. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're so busy, and we appreciate you, and we hope to have you on very soon.
Sounds good, Phil. Thanks a lot for having me.
Perfect. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the Phil Nason Show. Special thanks to Ben Nicholson-Smith for giving us all the info on everything Major League Baseball rumors and trades. Until next week, take care of yourself and have a great weekend.